New York City. The late 1980s. Two worlds sharing the same skyline. On one side, Wall Street, rising towers, men in pinstripes turning paper into gold. On the other, Harlem, where teenagers turned powder into fortunes that could buy those same suits and cars. Every block had a king. Every king had a crew. But behind the chains, the cars, the champagne, there was always a ledger. And sooner or later, the city came to collect. This is a story that shook Harlem to its core. The kidnapping and killing of 12-year-old William Donnell Porter. Four names stand out in this tragedy. Four men whose lives twisted together like wires sparking in the dark. The Prince of Harlem, Richard, money-rich Porter, a young man who made wealth look like destiny until kidnappers wrote ransom and had Uptown gasp for air. Azie Faison, his partner, his friend, was left bleeding on a floor with 9 bullets in his body. He lived, but the cost of survival was heavier than death. Alpo Martinez, the hustler with a smile sharp as glass. Charisma enough to lead, and betrayal sufficient to kill the very man who raised him. And then, the preacher crew. Not dealers, not dreamers. Predators. Men who kidnapped children, tortured rivals, and made Harlem itself pay tribute just to breathe. This isn't a fairy tale of kings and crowns. It's a reckoning. A story where trust and loyalty bend under the weight of greed. Where ambition writes checks that betrayal always cashes. They used to say a kid named Rich could turn blocks into billboards, BMWs for punctuation, gold chains for exclamation. Richard Thomas Porter, money rich, the Prince of Sugar Hill. He wore success like a miracle and a target at the same time. He learned the hustle early and style even earlier. By his mid-teens, Rich had cars that most grown men just pointed at through glass. By his 20s, he was a headline you could see coming. Harlem's kingpin, crack era, paid in full before anyone rolled a camera. He moved weight, spread money, and made 1,000 kids believe that gravity didn't apply on Lenox Avenue. These times felt like a miracle up in Harlem. But the thing about miracles? They keep a ledger. And in late '89, the debt collector came calling. On a Tuesday morning, December 5th, the brother of Rich Porter, a 12-year-old William Donnell Porter, doesn't make it to school that day. Later, the phone rings.
When I make an appeal for the Negroes, because you have no concern for the Negroes, listen to me when I make an appeal for America. But you are driving us back and you are making a Samson out of us, and we are going to pull down the pillar.
Hello?
At first, the voice on the other end seemed like some twisted prank call, someone claiming they had her son. Patricia, her mother, and the rest of the family couldn't believe it. This felt like something out of a movie, not their lives. But the calls kept coming. Each time the voice sounded more serious, more insistent. They said they had Darnell. They said he was alive, but they wanted money. $500,000 for his safe return. They called again, lowering it to $350,000, but the demands didn't stop. Hours later, there's a coffee cup left in a men's bathroom on 125th Street. Inside, 2 rings and a small, bloody finger. Proof of life by way of horror. Patricia, Pat, does what big sisters do when the world goes crooked. She calls the cops, taps the phones, prays out loud, prays again. Rich does what Rich knows. He tries to raise the ransom fast. Anyway, a man in his world can. Word on the street says a heavyweight named Fritz fronts him 30 keys to turn into cash. Harlem's version of helping your own. But time, like money, runs out. For weeks, the kidnappers toy with the family. Notes delivered by neighborhood kids. Taped pleas. Deadlines that move like shadows. Everyone in Harlem can feel the story tightening, the way a belt tightens around a starving waist. And then, on January 3rd, 1990, the unthinkable happened.
The cops came to our door saying that they had found the body of her son, and my mother thought that it was Donnell. And one of the cops explained to her, well, asked her, did she have a son named Richard?
Rich. Money, Rich Porter is found slumped and shot, dumped not far from City Island, still carrying a couple thousand cash in his pocket. He was 25. The prince was gone.
Said, Gruff, I got a spot for you. No doubt, Slay, I'm about to make it hot for you. These ain't no thugs, they puss. Stop fronting like you hard for your mug get pushed. Blood gon' gush. Fuck up my cheese doodles. Stain my pelly. That 40 cal turned to 6-pack belly jelly. I hit a nigga how he supposed to get hit. I walk up and hit him close. This big shit I tote for show. Gon' get him ghost for show.
25 days after the abduction, a homeless man looking for cans finds what the city was afraid to imagine. Donnell's remains, bagged and left off a path near the Hutchinson River Parkway, less than a mile from where Rich was found. Harlem stops talking for a day. Then it couldn't talk about anything else. In the years after, Pat will sit in a studio, the lights hot, the memories hotter, and say the quiet part loud. That it was family, Uncle Johnny, who opened the door for the monsters, and Preacher's crew who stepped through it. That her baby brother's voice on that cassette saying, "Help me," still lives behind her eyes. That they even had the gall to show up at the funeral. You can hear the room catch its breath when she says it. And what about Rich's death? Harlem asks the question. Word of betrayal sweeps the streets. This story lives in a different chapter with a colder ending. Alberto Alpo Martinez walks into Harlem like a change in weather. Fast talking, fast riding, the kind of charisma that spends itself as soon as it earns. He learns under Rich and Azie, then looks south to Washington, D.C., where the margins are fatter and the danger comes with a first and last name. Wayne Silk Perry. Expansion feels like destiny. The body count turns it into a file. Washington, D.C. is slowly becoming the nation's murder capital.
I could have put my man Wayne from D.C. They don't know Wayne. Wayne would have walked right up on him, hit him 3 times, and then piss on him.
Once in D.C., Alpo quickly connected with Wayne Silk Perry, a feared local enforcer known for his violence and loyalty.
Because D.C., they quick for their guns, man. Okay. They kill you in a minute, especially if they know you're from out of town.
Perry provided muscle and protection, while Alpo handled the drug pipeline, moving kilos from New York to D.C. Together, they ran one of the most violent, powerful drug operations in the capital's history. Multiple stash houses and networks, constant interstate runs. Alpo lived large, Ferraris, motorcycles, mink coats, and became infamous in both cities. By late '89, the trust between Alpo and Rich is paper thin, with missing money, inflated prices, and stories that don't add up. On January 3rd, 1990, Alpo calls a meeting that isn't. A van ride, a confrontation, a pistol raised by a henchman everyone calls Big Head Gary. Shots in the night. The city wakes up to a rumor that becomes a certainty.
I told my little man, I said, yo, we going to New York, man, and we gonna go see Rich. Did I kill Rich? And yes, Yes, I killed Richard. Why did I kill him? It wasn't personal. It was business.
The prince was murdered by his friend. The body is dumped near City Island. The tape of Alpo, years later, telling the story himself is stranger than fiction. He drives the route. He points to the spot. He talks about love and business as if they were the same thing. I had to do it. Confession as performance, or performance as confession. You decide. The feds caught up in 1991. 14 murders on the ledger, dope and guns layered on top. The choice is needle or notebook. Alpo picks up the pen, cooperates, testifies, trades secrets for years. They plant him in the witness protection program under a new name, Abraham Rodriguez, and ship him to Lewiston, Maine, where a man like Alpo can pass for a friendly neighbor who likes dirt bikes. For a while, it works. But some men are allergic to quiet. Sightings start in Harlem like Bigfoot. Some swear, some laugh. By Halloween 2021, the past finds him sitting in a Dodge Ram on West 147th Street. 5 shots through glass and into myth. A bulletproof vest can't cover your back when the whole borough remembers. The ID on him reads Abraham Rodriguez. But everyone on the sidewalk knows the name. Cops chase leads. One story says road rage, another says revenge with a long breath. A young man named Shaquem Parker is arrested. Years later, a jury walks him. Harlem shrugs. Justice in these stories rarely fits in a headline. Harlem lost 3 sons to the same streets that raised them. William Porter, a child who never made it to school that day, became a symbol of innocence caught in greed's crossfire. His brother, Rich Porter, lived fast, shining like the very dream every kid on the block wanted to chase, until loyalty and envy turned the city cold. And Alpo Martinez, once his friend, once his brother in hustle, lived long enough to see his own legend become a cautionary tale. And Patricia Porter, carried a kind of pain that never leaves. She answered the phone calls no mother or sister should ever hear. Voices demanding ransom, threats echoing through sleepless nights, and a silence that ended with unthinkable loss. She lost her baby brother. Then she buried another. In a few short months, Harlem took everything. But before the grief and the headlines, Patricia knew a different Harlem, a place alive with music, laughter, and love. It was there she met Azie Faison, young, sharp, and full of ambition. 2 dreamers in a city on fire. Before the streets turned tragic, there was loyalty, and Azie Faison and Gangster Lou lived by it. Lou wasn't just muscle, he was family. They grew together in the same Harlem rhythm, nights filled with fast money, fast cars, and even faster danger. When Azie rose, Lou was right there beside him, handling business, keeping order, making sure the operation ran smooth. They weren't just chasing cash, they were chasing power, respect, and identity, in a world that only valued what you could show. Harlem in the mid-'80s was electric, crack money flooding the blocks, fashion defining status, and the trio of Azie, Rich Porter, and younger Gangster Lou standing at the center of it all. But behind the luxury, the Gucci coats, the BMWs, the diamond chains, there was always a shadow waiting. Because in the game they built, every friendship had an expiration date, written in whispers and envy. By '84, Azie is moving weight with a calm that looks like talent. He links with Rich. Later they bring a charismatic East Harlem kid named Alpo into the circle. A storefront becomes a hub. A block becomes a franchise. At the peak, Azie says the day's take could buy a house, every day. The money feels like oxygen. Then one night, the oxygen is ripped from his chest.
It was a humid August night outside along the Grand Concourse as the three killers silently crept up 3 flights of stairs, then down this hallway to this corner apartment. Once they pushed their way inside, they rounded up 6 friends, one of them a 13-year-old girl. They shoved them back into a rear bedroom, made them lie on the floor, and then pumped 25 shots into the backs of their heads and bodies.
On August 22, 1987, a South Bronx apartment turns into a slaughterhouse. 6 people were shot at close range, 3 dead. Azie takes 9 bullets and somehow keeps a pulse. The papers call it a drug-tied robbery. The city calls it the cost of doing business. Azie calls it the beginning of the end. You don't unhear shots at that distance. You don't unsee your aunt on the floor. Recovery is slow. Business doesn't wait. The trio's balance bends. Azie on the bench, Rich and Alpo closer by necessity, by choice, by gravity. And there's that whisper no one wants to repeat. When the money's this big, the math always finds a way to make enemies out of friends. January 1990 arrives with a split heart. Donnell is kidnapped, and Rich is frantic. Then, the call no friend should ever get. Rich is gone. Azie will later say the final nail wasn't a bullet. It was who squeezed the trigger. He'll talk about betrayal the way a preacher talks about sin. Precise, mournful, impossible to forgive. Something changes in him right there. He walks away from the table while there's still light to be seen in the future. He channels the voice the streets will actually listen to. Mob style, raw. One of the first Harlem gangster rap crews to speak directly about street life before it was mainstream. The group consists of Harlem legend Gangster Lou, a Harlem native, member and voice of the group. Pretty Tone Capone and Whip Wop. Later Game Over, the book and the documentary, where he stares straight through the lens and tells young men what the movies leave out. That almost everyone you admire from this life ends up dead, caged, or begging the law for air. When on Vlad's couch years later, grown, weary, funny in the small moments, saying the game's been dead since the 90s, saying the only high he keeps now is from telling the truth, you realize Azie became something rare in these stories. A witness who lived long enough to warn kids of the street life and what comes with it. You know, some would say, if Rich is Harlem memory and Alpo is Harlem consequence, then Azie is Harlem's conscience. He is the friend at the bar who leans in and lowers his voice. You think you can beat the math? We all did. Then he leaves a tip, stands and steps back into the night. One of the few that made it home. Some predators don't deal dope, they tax it. They find the shine and step out of the dark with a ledger and a gun. In the late 80s and early 90s, Harlem had a name for that kind of terror. Clarence Preacher Heatley and the Preacher Crew, the Black Hand of Death. Extortion, kidnappings, torture rooms with no windows. A gang so feared their enforcers called themselves janitors, because after they came through, someone took care of the mess. When federal agents caught up with this crew, the federal paperwork reads like a nightmare you can't wake from. Notices of intent to seek the death penalty, RICO counts, murders in aid of racketeering, and a line that snags the throat: kidnapping, torture, and murder of Donnell Porter. This isn't legend. It's the government getting ready to ask a jury to end a man's life. In the end, they don't have to. Heatley pleads, takes life without remorse. His lieutenant John Cuff pleads too. The door on the cage slams once. It doesn't open again. Ask around and you'll hear other whispers. A Bronx building with a basement torture chamber. Crews extorted for protection. Even a celebrity kidnapping story the tabloids only half told. Whether every rumor is true or not, the convictions say enough. Murders admitted, murders plotted, kidnappings executed. A city held at the throat until a joint FBI-NYPD-C11 squad put a case together complicated enough to choke on. And this is where their shadow crosses the rest of our story. Rich bled loyalty and money to save his brother. Preacher's crew squeezed Harlem streets. Azie counted the cost of 9 bullets. And while Alpo pointed a gun at a friend, Heatley pointed a city toward a verdict that spelled forever. The same river of years, the same streets, different kinds of wolves. When the judge reads life plus centuries, it doesn't bring Donnell home. It doesn't rewind time. But it does something small and necessary. It names who did what, and it closes the door hard enough that even the echoes can't find a way out. That, sometimes, is all the living get.